Yes, yes, the voice is very clear and we are ready to hear you. Okay, go ahead, please.
Okay, thank you very much. Well, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh from Sarajevo. Salams and greetings to everyone. Well, organizers put me within this session, but my topic does not relate too much to international justice issues, practices, and organizations. My topic is more about shared foreign policy trends of Muslim majority countries and their impact on new international order. So it is more about existing realities, how things are, not about how things should be. It is also about us, the Muslim world, more than about others, the West, for example. So the topic of shared foreign policy within the Muslim world is more challenging task than exploring their diversity or their particularity. Some 50 or even more so Muslim majority states from Morocco to Indonesia, they contain both internal and external variations that complicate their understanding and their use as a compact, singular political entity. So given their distinct national, ideological, sectarian, geopolitical, geographical context within which their foreign policies are often formulated, similar reference points have appeared only occasionally. So in practical terms, it made it difficult to find few Muslim countries pursuing like-minded or similar policies motivated by similar considerations of all possible topics in the past, in a distant past as well. Unifying incentives played a more active role in a limited number of issues, such as safeguarding of Islamic symbols or principles from defamation at the international level, at the UN level, support of Palestine at the UN level alone, I would say, or support of Bosnia during aggression in early 1990s. In recent time, and I say in recent time, and my research is about last 3 to 4 years, however, similar foreign policy models have been multiplying. Muslim majority states from Morocco to Indonesia have revealed new trends in these recent years, raising important questions about the prevailing international order and the role of the Muslim world in this new international order. So Muslim majority states in this recent time, they are more independent, they are more neutral, and they are more self-confident in their foreign policy conduct. Their foreign policy today is what can be called practical or cautious or uneasy neutrality. But in each and every case, it is about neutrality. They also demonstrate a new readiness to de-Westernize their international affairs, establish strategic partnerships with different great powers, reduce their dependence on arms suppliers from the West, from the US in particular, and decrease their interstate rivalry. Let me demonstrate these assumptions with some empirical evidence from last 3 to 4 years. First point, Muslim majority states are more neutral today than they were before in their foreign policy conduct. Their heads of the state, their presidents, their prime ministers, foreign ministers, or other foreign policy agents, they have generally highlighted a single meaning in their official deliberations about Russian war in Ukraine, for example. It is all about neutrality, whether this neutrality is practical, cautious, or uneasy. But in each and every case, it is about neutrality. Let me share some evidence about these deliberations. Former Pakistani Prime Minister Imran Khan said, and I quote him, "Countries like Pakistan should not pass any value or moral judgment on this. End of the quote. They should be, the Muslim majority states, and I quote him, non-aligned, neutral, and friendly to both. End of the quote. Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan, for example, said, I quote him, we cannot hold sides, we cannot take sides, and it wouldn't be right for us to do this. End of the quote. Malaysian foreign minister said that Kuala Lumpur does not support either side of the conflict. Riyadh, and this is my final example, like other Arab capitals, also views that the war in Ukraine views the war in Ukraine as a complicated European conflict, which does not require Arab states to stand against Russia. Indeed, for the past 2 years of the conflict, of this war in Ukraine, Russian aggression in Ukraine, it is hard to find any statement by any political Muslim leader that side either with the West or with Russia. This approach is generally in line with the first rule of late American scholar Samuel Huntington, in which he wrote about this in his famous piece, Clash of Civilizations, in which core states, in this particular case, core Muslim majority states, abstain from conflicts in other civilizations. So on this point, he was right, even though Muslim intellectuals have a tendency to be critical of him. On this point, he was a little bit right. My second point, the balanced approach from Muslim world is just a symptom of the much bigger and larger story. My analysis argues for wider and consistent patterns that go beyond neutrality on this war in Ukraine, with far-reaching implications. So, given their preference, given Muslim world's preference for balance of power politics, Muslim majority states show readiness to establish political, economic, or even security partnerships with multiple players in the international system. Rather than choosing an alliance with a single pole, as Samuel Huntington or even Alexander Dugin from Russia suggest, with Islamic Confucianism in case of Huntington, or Islamic Orthodox alliances with regards to Alexander Dugin, Muslim majority states preferred constructive engagements with various great powers based on their commercial, their security, and their geopolitical interests. Turkey, for example, sees Russia as an important partner for energy, for tourism, or regional security. At the same time, Ankara has diversified its security options with NATO membership. Saudi Arabia, is another example, counts on China as its second largest trading partner. In December last year, Chinese President Xi Jinping, he visited the kingdom. At the same time, Saudis hosted President Biden in 2022. So having to choose one relationship over the other would be costly. So Turkey and Saudi Arabia, in this particular example, tend to pursue multi-directional foreign policy. Abu Dhabi, Cairo, Jakarta, Islamabad, and Doha, just to name a few, they also played by the book of realism, respecting their self-interest and respecting self-help system. My third point, such balancing behavior from the Muslim world at the bilateral level has put many Muslim majority states in closer proximity to non-Western groups at multilateral level. They approached BRICS, for example, in 2022, made up of emerging economies, namely Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa, and the Shanghai Cooperation Organization, a China-centric political, economic, and security group. So both of these groups, they address international affairs in a multipolar manner, serving as an alternative to US-led liberal, institutional, and rules-based order. In the Middle East alone, Bahrain, Egypt, Kuwait, Qatar, Saudi Arabia, the United Arab Emirates are current and prospective dialogue partners of this China-centric political organization. All medium-sized Muslim majority states such as Iran, Egypt, Turkey, Indonesia, Saudi Arabia, they also look positively to BRICS. So the same holds for other parts of the Muslim world. They all prefer to participate in the remaking of the rules of the international system that is now underway. My fourth point, neutrality that I talk about is generally not cheap in international affairs. Given their preference, I mean the preference of the Muslim majority states for neutrality, it is very important to note that many Muslim majority states have taken appropriate measures to protect and pay for this status of neutrality. So what they do, they have been arming themselves more than states that rely on outside great powers. So according to a fact sheet, arms transfer database, this is the most sophisticated database on arms transfers, international one, 14 Muslim majority states are listed among top 30 largest arms importers. 5 of them are listed among top 10, namely Saudi Arabia, Egypt, Qatar, Pakistan, and United Arab Emirates. Furthermore, dependence of some Muslim majority states on the US in particular, when it comes to arms supply, is decreasing. And this is the tendency. According to the same arms transfers database fact sheet, Russia is already the largest arms supplier for at least 4 Muslim majority states, Egypt, Algeria, Iraq, and Pakistan, from 2017 to 2021. And the second and third largest supplier for at least 4 additional Muslim majority countries, Bangladesh, Azerbaijan, Pakistan, and United Arab Emirates. Of the top 30 weaponry importers from Russia, more than half are Muslim majority states. So this proposition that dependency on the West and the US in particular is decreasing, holds with the trends in arms sales from Russia. So in recent years, Russian share of MENA, Middle Eastern, Northern Africa defense market has doubled. Its arms deliveries increased by 125% between 1999 and 2008 and 2009 and 2018. So Russian arms delivery to Middle East region accounted for 26% of total volume of Russian arms exports from 2009-2018, while in previous decade it counted only 14%. So it jumped from 14% to 26%. Well, while arms imports from Russia increased, the US arms exports to Muslim majority states dropped from 47% from 2012 to 2016 to 43% in the time of 2017-2021. For example, I'll illustrate this with 2 very practical examples. United Arab Emirates was the second largest US recipient of US arms weapons in 2012-2016, but in period of 2017-2021, it is 8, from 2nd to 8. For the same period, US arms export to Turkey has fallen for 81%. So that state dropped from being a 3rd largest recipient of US arms export in 2011-2015 to the 19th largest arms importer in 2016-2020. And my final point. So this setting of the Muslim world versus others leaves an important question, namely the issue of interstate relations between Muslim majority countries. So what is their stance toward each other in a polarized and fluid world order with multiple great powers? So despite lacking more time and more evidence, their neutrality that I talk about seems to deliver beneficial results so far, even with this particular question. It is more obvious that their new foreign policy trends facilitate the reduction of antagonism within the Muslim world. So data on civil data on proxy and data on interstate wars suggest that rival Muslim states compete far less today, when I say today in the last 3 to 5 years, than during previous phases. States who had strained relations, problematic relations with each other, such as Saudi Arabia and Qatar, Turkey and Syria, United Arab Emirates and Turkey, Saudi Arabia and Iran, they all made bilateral U-turns. In the meantime, Turkey and Saudi Arabia established military collaborations. President Erdogan hosted Saudi Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman. The Turkish defense minister met his Syrian counterpart in Moscow. A ceasefire in Yemen is still holding. Saudi Arabia reopened its consulate in Iraq and pledged $1 billion in aid. And the civil war in Syria is no longer hostile. Perhaps most unexpectedly, Iran and Saudi Arabia signed a new agreement in China in March 2023 and announced that they resume their diplomatic relations after years of tensions and hostility. Turkey has also begun a rapprochement with Syria in December 2022. So, as a conclusion, while this rivalry within the Muslim world among the Muslim majority states is certainly not expected to end completely or cease completely in emerging multipolar world, especially within gray areas where their interests are overlapping, their all differences are becoming less relevant. And this is evidence that I have presented. So these new trends in the Muslim world, new trends, new foreign policy trends of the Muslim majority states may be an opportunity to highlight other common issues such as justice or international justice. With this, I would end, and I thank you for this opportunity.